Hey,
Okay.
welcome anyone and everyone coming over from the waiting room. Welcome to the webinar, entrepreneurs, business owners, business leaders, small business owners.
Welcome. We're gonna start in a minute, just so that we
Oh, I see
start.
Daisy Ramos, Daniel Cardona. That's Florida Export Finance Corporation. Please introduce yourself in the chat, please. That way anyone can connect with you who may be on the webinar. Oh, I see Jonathan Alvarez. Hello. Welcome. Oh, I'm so happy to see so many people. Every time I start scrolling, it jumps back. So I'm not getting past the D's. There's so many.
So we're very excited to have you all today. Like Shelly said, please go ahead and use the chat feature. You can introduce yourselves so that we know who you are. Throughout the webinar, we will be using the Q&A so that you can ask any questions. And then at the end of Shelly's presentation, we'll go ahead and answer those to the best of our ability. The good news is that we have a lot of resources today in this webinar. So we'll be, answering your questions, but also sharing other resources and people that are here joining us in this webinar that are able to also answer questions. So please, any questions that you have, please use the Q&A so that Daniel
Lorna, are you seeing the raised hands?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so you've got that.
Please use the Q&A, okay? Please use the Q&A. Chat is disabled. Oh, okay. Thank you for letting me know.
Right into the chat. Can they?
Okay. Thanks for letting me know. Try now. And thank you for using the Q&A.
And I made it. Oh, go ahead.
I see Great Machinery. Hello. Thank you for joining us. Very happy to see you.
And so is the chat working? Oh, I see 2 in chat. So yes, it looks like it's working now.
Yes. Okay, so we are gonna start. Thank you. Thank you, Daisy. Okay, so my name is Lorna Baez. I am one of the assistant directors here at the SBDC at FIU. Shelly, if you want, you can turn to the other slide. For those that do not know us, we are part of America's SBDC network. We are grant funded, and this webinar has been funded by First Bank. So we receive federal, state grants, but also private. We are part of the Florida network, and that's why we've partnered with FIU and service Miami and also Monroe County, so the Keys. So we're under the College of Business, okay? Today is a very important webinar. We know that there's a lot going on and there's a lot of changes. I just wanted you to know that if you are interested in individualized business consulting, you are able to tap to our consultants who are specialists in different areas. Shelly Bernal here, she is a specialist on trade and export, and hence she is the one that is leading today's workshop. I will be using the chat feature to put the links throughout the webinar so that you can tap into our resources if you have not done so already. As a caveat, our consultants are very specialized in very specific areas. If for any reason we are unable to service your business, we will provide you with other community resources that might be helpful to you, okay? So the idea here is that you never leave empty-handed. So I'm going to leave it now to Shelly so that she can start the webinar. And one more thing, this webinar is being recorded. You will receive a follow-up email with the recording, as well as the presentation, as well as a PDF that Shelly shared with very important information on the topics that she's going to share today. Okay, Shelly.
Thank you, Lorna. Welcome, welcome, all businesses. It's so wonderful for you to join us today. I'm actually have been looking forward to this. This is quite a topic. And what I have organized for you today is not necessarily a deep dive into anything, but more of a process on how to streamline and be effective and efficient about addressing what is happening right now. And so it worked a second ago to change the slides is not working. So let me try something. There we go. And so I don't know if any of you have heard of or read this book, but it's a classic. It's one of my favorites. And this is exactly what I was thinking of whenever I was putting this information together, is that there has been a change, and potentially the direct path to our cheese has changed. And so now we need to look for a different path. And what has that change been? Well, it's all about the tariffs, or that's the piece I'm going to address today. And actually, I tried to put all of it that has happened in just the last couple of months in one slide, and I actually had to use two. There's been so many changes. But I am not going to go into a deep dive on each one of these. The way I'm presenting this information is, here is a repository of the topics and the points of interest. And as long as you look at each one of these and determine whether it's relevant for your business or not, then you have left no stones unturned. You haven't missed out on anything, and you do not need to continue to sift through all of the information. I just tried to compile all of the points, and in this way you can use this as a way to just make sure peace of mind, make sure that everything you have determined whether it's applicable or not, and have moved on with the business. Each one of the tariffs are impacting other variables. And then some of the variables are changing on their own in response to this. And so there are multiple variables to take into consideration on each decision. And many times that means there are trade-offs that have to happen. We can't have everything that we want. And this leaves us, maybe the plans that we had when we started the year are not functional at this time. Maybe the idea, the processes that we were using are not working, and the path to our cheese has dispersed. And so the goal with this webinar and the content that I'm providing is really to provide you with a framework, just a structure, a process to move through, and just be as efficient as possible to make sure that all the bases are covered and you can address what needs to be addressed in your business. And so the way I've organized the content is with these relatively arbitrary categories or groups. And on the first column under focus, I grouped 3 areas together. One is import compliance. One is import operations, strategic management. And then the third group is commercialization, the go-to-market strategy, the commercial approach. Along the top, what I did is segment out the businesses by the frequency of imports, the exposure to imports. And so one category is the infrequent importer, the one that may import 1 or 2 times a year. From a few times a year up to about, I'm using the arbitrary number of $500,000 worth of goods of import value a year. That would be another group, the middle group. And then if the business is importing more than $500,000 a year, I kind of group them separately. And the only part that's separate is really, there are some tools that can be used that require some capital outlay. And so you really wouldn't want to implement those unless you are importing more than $500,000 a year worth of goods. And so starting with the import compliance, I am fundamentally an advocate for clarifying the role of customs brokers with business owners. So in the red box, this is what I have heard before from business owners, is that their customs broker is really a transportation service provider, and that choosing their broker, that decision was made on the least cost provider. And that's one methodology, obviously. And I will share reasons why, if there might be other reasons, ways to search for a partnership with customs broker. I actually think of customs brokers more like your CPA. And so just like you take your taxes to your CPA to file with the IRS every year, the reason you're doing that is that the tax code is extraordinarily complicated and complex, and it's really difficult to understand how and what you can do, especially if, I mean, if you're a W-2 and you're filing a standard deduction, that's one thing. But if you're a business owner and have many deductions and many ways to classify things, that is what the role of the CPA is. And in the second box, I put that one thing is the CPA is never going to be responsible for the tax that you filed. Ultimately, the filer is the responsible party for what you chose to file with the IRS. The same thing with the customs brokers and with CBP. CBP is never going to blame your customs broker for what happened. It is you. And you choose your customs broker based on your risk tolerance. And so just like you can find a CPA who will support a very high risk tolerant approach to filing taxes with the IRS, you can also find customs brokers who can match that level of tolerance. The trick is knowing that this is what you're doing in a partnership and proactively making this decision, not going in blindly and assuming one thing and not knowing. So the idea with this information is to bring it to your awareness so that you can ask better questions all the way through the process. And in that way, you can have the peace of mind that things are being done according to the way you would want them to be done. So that is how I would approach a customs broker, just like you would with your CPA and the IRS. And by the way, duties and taxes are a federal government tax. And so it is federal tax fraud to evade paying your duties and taxes. So in many ways, I love this analogy. And everyone pays taxes, so it's one that everyone can relate to, whether they import or not. And so on the core import compliance, as it relates to tariffs particularly, we have 3 areas. One is the harmonized tariff schedule code. That's the product code. We have the country of origin of the product, and we have the valuation, the dollar value of the product. And that's how the tariff is calculated. And under core import compliance, so really anyone importing even one time should have this base of knowledge to be able to ask the correct questions and make relevant decisions for yourself. Please verify that your codes are correct. And this many times is left in the hands of your supplier and or your broker, which is fine if you are providing enough information and if you are asking the right questions. And so I'm sure everyone here has had the same experience I have, where you have engaged a professional, whether it be a doctor or a contractor at your house or any service provider, let's say, and you later wondered, well, why did it go wrong like this? And the provider says, well, that's not what you asked about. That's not what you said. And if you had asked, I would have told you. I thought you knew. That is the same with everything here. Your level of education or information needs to be at a certain place to be able to participate actively in managing your business. If you just hand everything off to the people you're contracting without any guidance, then you're going to get what they give you. And it's not necessarily their fault, because there is kind of a baseline that is the responsibility of the business owner. So usitc.gov is where you can find the chapters, the categories of information that's necessary to determine the code on a product are material composition, the function, intended use, physical characteristics, packaging, and condition. So right there, most companies are not providing this level of information to anyone in order for them to classify their products for them. So this is the first clue that we need to up our game a little bit if we want accurate classifications of our codes. The second part is that there are, I believe there's 6 general interpretive rules. And so it's kind of like a decision tree. You start with 1. If it's yes, you go here. If it's no, you go there. That is how the classification works. Each chapter has notes that you can read through and see if there are any areas that would be relevant to your product in that chapter. There's also a nifty website with customs rulings. And so other businesses who have had concerns or questions have submitted them to customs, and this was ruled upon and published publicly. And so you can do a search under the HS codes of interest and see if any have already been done, and maybe there's clarification for your products there. And Chapter 98 is a chapter of exclusions from duties if a product falls in there. So I'm not advocating for every business owner to be able to do their own classifications. What I'm suggesting or recommending with this information is be able to find where all your questions are at. And so look at your complex products, look at your high value products, look at your high import volume and high import tariff products, and look at any of them that could potentially be classified with more than one code that has different tariff rates. With that, now you're armed with being prepared and having robust, comprehensive conversations with your service providers and having the real service that you're maybe believing that you're getting. You just weren't participating in it. Moving to country of origin, the most frequent misnomer is country of export is equal to country of origin. And the the last point on that is specifically about the USMCA free trade agreement. Because a product is made in Canada or Mexico does not mean that it's automatically eligible for the agreement. If it's a product of Mexico, does not automatically mean that it's eligible to be considered USMCA. So knowing these points in detail is extraordinarily important. And so what I'm putting here in this framework are topics to make sure that you're very aware of. I'm not putting all the details of everything because, of course, there's not enough time for that. But there is information on everything. There's more information on everything. This is just, is it relevant or not? So if you're not using any of the free trade agreements, then this isn't relevant because you're not classifying anything as USMCA anyways. For those who are, and this looks confusing, please delve into it in more detail so that you can ask the right questions and achieve what you want to achieve with your business. Valuation. If you are under, I think it's the Section 232 aluminum steel tariffs, and you're under derivatives or others, there's US content exemptions for some, and knowing more about that is important if it's relevant for you. On the transaction value, there are some things that are excluded. The most common are the international transportation and the insurance. So just making sure, depending on your Incoterms, that you're not paying duties on that is important. And if any of this sounds unfamiliar to you, then getting more information is recommended. The one that stands out to me right now is I have heard this idea of splitting the invoice for dutiable and non-dutiable, which, you know, it may be just a use of terminology that's different than what I have heard before, because I just gave an example of the transaction value exclusions. However, that's not in the industry normally referred to as dutiable and non-dutiable. And so I just pointed out to make sure that there are not other classifications of costs being moved around in different invoices, because that could be a setup for something that you don't want to get involved in. And so if this is anything that's relevant, please get more information on it and avoid any problems. Also, with the core import compliance, Incoterms are incredibly important, and they really address freight documents and risk of loss. They do not address payment terms and other things. And so if you think it covers other things, then let's get some more clarity there for you. Record keeping, CBP, 5 years is the obligation. So please keep your records for 5 years. And it would be ideal if you had your records and you didn't rely on your customs broker to keep your records for you. You know, relying on other people to keep your records may or may not serve you 5 years from now, depending. The other categories, you can submit for vessel manifest confidentiality. There are anti-dumping, countervailing duties, and there are high enforcements about forced labor. So if you haven't checked any of this for relevancy, please do. Ching, 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 we have completed the core import compliance. Moving on to the extended import compliance section of this process. With this, there's a deeper dive. And so on the harmonized tariff schedule codes, I alluded to the rulings that are available. And if you're importing more frequently, it might be relevant for you to submit your own request. There are many ways to look at using different codes, whether it be redesigning products, the bundling of goods, the unbundling or disassembling of your product into pieces or components, or not doing the finished goods, but importing the raw materials. All of this has plenty of information on it. The only thing I'm mentioning is that if you're not aware of it, this is bringing it to your attention to see if it's relevant or not. You can work with the country of origin classification through a substantial transformation, not changing just where it's shipping from. And then on the valuation, there is a deeper dive, if you will, on the customs value assessment. And there is a first sale rule where a price paid earlier in the supply chain could be used. If any of this is relevant, certainly get specialization on that and ask more questions about it. Ching, ching, ching. Now we have completed our import compliance and are moving on to import operations. And so here are some topics to make sure that you have addressed. One is if you're importing several high value shipments all at the same time, look at your merchandise processing fees. Bonds, have you checked to make sure you're on a continuous bond instead of still doing a single entry bond fee for every entry? Look at your bond amount, make sure that it's sufficient, and make changes if it's not. And on the topic slightly of duties being paid, I have a few other points that aren't directly related to bond, which is take a look at your agreement with your customs broker. Are you paying a fee for that company to advance payments to CBP on your behalf? And or were you not paying and now you are? Maybe there are changes coming up. Know that you can set up ACH directly with CBP yourself, and you can set up periodic monthly statements with CBP so that it does kind of a monthly billing where the withdrawal would be the 2 weeks or so after the close of that statement. So you can compare your cash flow. Essentially, what I'm bringing to your attention is cash flow, and make sure that your bank account is funded to avoid blocked transactions. The ACE, if you haven't heard of this I recommend every importer set up. It's at no cost. It's directly with Customs and Border Protection. It provides you with visibility to the running balance of your duties. So if your broker is advancing payment to CBP, you can see, and before they give you your invoice the next month, you can actually go into here and see that statement being built on your behalf, because that in here is the running balance of every transaction that's going through and the duties that are being paid on your behalf. And you can see communications between your customs broker and CBP about all of your transactions. Record keeping. Many organizations have not built into their systems the entry numbers. However, that is the data point that is utilized by CBP when they request information. So this can become confusing internally to respond if you have no way of connecting the dots there. So that's what that's for. Bonded warehouses are an option for cash flow, deferring duties. And in these locations, you can store and manipulate the product. Intellectual property, you can file protection with CBP for your trademark in the event that it would be relevant that someone else could be importing your branded products, obviously fraudulently, but CBP, when you do this, can protect you at the border. And now we're moving to the capital intensive options on import operations. So if you were importing significant volumes, then it might be of interest to look into duty drawbacks if you're also exporting those products. You can look into foreign trade zones, setting one up or moving into one. And in those, different than the bonded warehouses. You can assemble and manufacture, but there's also a deference of duties, which impacts cash flow. And then if you have your business in another country and you're transferring products between the businesses, then transfer pricing could be an interesting topic. And now moving to strategic management. And so with this topic, the idea is to build out a system where you are taking into consideration multiple variables and how they interact with each other, so that unlike what happened when we first started with COVID a few years back, is we would run through an entire exercise with the new information that we had and make a decision. And then a few weeks later, or a month later, we would have new information and go back through the whole process. So the idea with this is to collect all of the data points, organize it in such a way so that each time things keep changing, you already have kind of a comprehensive matrix set up to be able to plug in the changes without having to go through the whole cycle every single time. So what data points could be of consideration for this system? For product, look at your supplier, your code, your country of origin, even the country that it's departing from, or where you take ownership at, the cost, the margin, the tariff rate for the product, how much of the product are you moving, and identify the specializations. So these would be suppliers that would be complex to find an alternative to, or specific products that would be difficult to change for different reasons. And also document the options for alternative sourcing for those products. Under supplier, looking at your contract terms, yes, the things that we may not have ever remembered we had. The volume commitments, lead times, the delivery performance, quality performance. And the couple that I'm adding in are make note of the parent companies of your suppliers to understand what countries the ownership is at. And also, this isn't just for your imported products. Local suppliers are expected to be changing costs as well, and may encounter other issues. And so, not to mention COVID again, but a few years back, one of the things that I noticed was that my business owners who were manufacturing had difficulties getting access to packaging supplies. And so your local suppliers may encounter other issues that would impact you. And so also going through this exercise and having that information for your local suppliers is also important. The main thing that I want to point out is that this ACE that I mentioned to you earlier, if you're thinking already, how am I going to put this data together? Where is it in my system? How can I organize it? Please remember that you can, when you set up this free account, you can go in and download your historical import transaction data. So your manufacturers, your suppliers, your codes, your valuations, your tariff rates, your volumes. This information is available from this nifty environment. And so once you have your information together, the idea is to go through and understand the interdependencies of these variables and decide on trade-offs and be able to move forward with the decisions of your business. And so looking at the costs, the profitability for the whole business, the profitability by product, trying to identify the areas of further evaluation, if you will, your top suppliers, your top products, critical suppliers, or even your highest risk suppliers. The same with your products, the ones that may be driving your highest costs. and then developing an internal process to move through this data and make analysis, evaluations, and decisions, taking the information and projecting it out to be able to toy with the idea of changes in volumes and how this affects your finances. Ching, ching, ching. So now we're through two categories of this process and moving directly into the market, the go-to-market strategy, the commercial approach. And so the areas to take a peek at for your commercial approach are customers, considering the impacts, the sensitivity to pricing. I have already been receiving inquiries about the bidding process and how to work with that with their customers, and really communicating with your customers, understanding where they're coming from, which feeds into what you understand could be potential issues in the future. And then suppliers, the same thing, costs, communication, considering the financial strength of your suppliers during this time. The other areas would be on the US market. You know, one of the conversations that I was having, which was interesting, was we've never looked at our competitive landscape from a country of origin perspective before, because it's never been an issue. And so rethinking through the supply chain of your competitors, the impact of tariffs on country of origin of your competitors, whether you are an import or not, and whether they are an import or not. All of this is really a new paradigm for us, and a new perspective of looking at the market. And then if you're in retail in particular, and whether you were utilizing the under 800 and to your customers selling direct, or whether you were competing against it, and having all of this change and what the impacts of that could or could not be. And then thinking if you're using fulfillment centers for your business. This was one of the topics that was surprising, because that's the next layer. Because if you're using a fulfillment center and now demand for fulfillment centers has tripled or more, then what impact could that have on you, and what relationship do you have with your fulfillment center, and have you identified alternative options, or are you coordinating more closely with your center? It's about your relationships. And anytime there are changes, it's always a great idea to look for opportunities. So new channels, new markets. And if you're exporting, really thinking through and understanding what the this environment with the changes could do to impact the demand for your products that you're exporting, whether that be currency or inflation or the retaliatory tariffs, depending on the markets you're exporting to. And on the products, a couple of ideas would be anytime that we're looking at managing cash flow, it's always a great idea to look at your inventory and look at the complexities of your SKUs. And so maybe looking at rationalizing your portfolio of products would be an idea. And if any of your products have expensive components or parts that are not adding that much value, or we're adding value when there wasn't an increase in cost to your customers, depending on that elasticity, then maybe changing those products. So really taking a look at that area as well. And it all comes back on a business to profitability. So looking at possibly changing how you manage your inventory, your accounts receivables, again, working with your customers, working on cash flow projections. This may not be something that you do regularly. And so implementing that could be beneficial. And as we all know, it's never, when you need credit, it's not the time to go to your banks. It's time to have those relationships when you do not need it. And then thinking about if it's relevant, foreign currency forward contracts. Ultimately, the priorities are look at your costs, improve your service, look at your inventory, and get new sales. That's ultimately the priorities at this moment. And so, ching, 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 we have covered all of the sections of the process. And at this point, you have looked at everything that's relevant. So we looked at import compliance, import operations, strategic management, and the commercial approach. And once you've looked at each of these, you've pulled out all of the relevant ones, and then you do a deeper dive on the ones that are relevant. You have everything that you need for your process, and you're ready to make your trade-off decisions, and you're prepared to be able to make changes that are coming up in the future, and ready to continue as you do so well as a business owner and an entrepreneur. One thing I would like to let you know about is that at the end of the month, there is a Customs and Border Protection Outreach Day open to the public. And there is not a website or a phone number or an email with this, but I do have an address, the date, and the time. And I have the rest of this flyer. I kind of cut it off to put it on here. But this is available. And of course, given what questions you may have by May 28th, this might be a fantastic opportunity for you. And my name is Shelly Bernal. I have been a consultant here for 10 years, and I can be reached at my email and on LinkedIn. This is with the SBDC at FIU, serving businesses in Miami-Dade County and Monroe County. And what we offer is one-on-one business consulting. So really, just like this, we do virtual meetings with businesses and work with you on specifically where you're at with your business and the needs that you have. We provide data from databases that we have subscriptions to that maybe you don't with a business. We can download it and provide it to you. And one of the more popular topics is government contracting. Specifically, we have the Apex Accelerator, who focuses on helping companies with their bids with the Department of Defense and others. And here is our contact information with the SBDC at FIU. And Lorna, thank you for coming back on. We're open to questions.
And we have a few.
Oh, great. I'm glad to hear that.
Okay, the first one is, can you share the link to the Chapter 98 Customs Classification online search?
Yes, and actually, I'll go one further. When you go to that usitc.gov website, which has the chapters for all of the classifications of the products, you can scroll down, because it's actually the last chapter of that. So it starts chapter 1 and etc. And you can scroll down on that usitc.gov website to get to it. But yes, we can put, Lorna, would we be able to add like these sorts of answers to the email that's going out to the
Yes.
participants?
Yes. So
Okay.
I
So
can
after
add the
this, I
link.
can give you the link and then you could just include it.
Okay,
Okay, perfect.
perfect. Okay. The second question is, where exactly do we go to create the ACE account?
I'm so glad I motivated people to get interested in this. I cannot tell you how much I advocate that every importer do this. That is not so clear cut. So I should provide that to Lorna, and then
Okay.
she can include it in there. The great news is that there is a place to start the process, but there are training videos even on YouTube about how to set this up and how to use it to get what you want. I found that the training videos are really phenomenal, and they have training videos in Spanish as well. So it's fantastic what's available. But I'll provide the link to ACE to Lorna.
Okay. Okay. Another question. We have a C corporation in the US and we export, not transferring to a related business in Central America. Both are family-owned businesses. Do we need to run a transfer price study in the US?
Okay, so a quick I'll give you the perspective that I look at transfer pricing. So a quick look at transfer pricing is that this is a tax. Of course, now it's also a tariff, but it's fundamentally a tax policy. And so this is historically something that I have worked with companies with their CPA. And so it's fundamentally a tax thing. And so my first response would be how it would depend on how the taxes, the ownership structure and the taxes are being paid between the two businesses. The one that's here in the US and then the one that's in Central America. If there is a tax relationship between the two, then my guess would be that having a look at transfer pricing more in depth would be advisable. If there is no relationship between the two entities from a tax perspective, then my guess would be that transfer pricing would not be relevant. However, disclaimer, I'm not a CPA, I'm not a customs broker, I'm really a crowdsourcer of information, and I just try to bring to the attention of everyone topics to look into further. But I would direct you to your CPA to get a more accurate answer on that.
Thank you. Another question. Hello, Shelly. Could you please provide more details about the drawback process? If we are already an FTC, would it have any advantages to clear customs and ask for duty drawback?
Okay, no. That's the short answer, but I want to give a more comprehensive answer. And so the functionality of a duty drawback is that I am a company and I import products, and some of the products I sell here in the US and some of the products I export back out. And I'm exporting back out a significant enough of it that it adds up to I'm paying on those eligible products. I am paying over $50,000 a year in duties. And so right now I'm absorbing it because I'm paying that duty whenever I import it in, and I'm exporting those products back out. And so that has reached a level which is really impacting my cash flow, my profitability. So that business in this situation that I described could avoid doing a free trade zone and not be in a bonded warehouse and do what's called a duty drawback, which is setting up, it's basically a paperwork system where if all the documents are set up and the process is set up correctly, where you're documenting what came in and what went out, and you're able to connect those dots, then you are eligible to have those duties refunded to you, which because you're paying your duties when you're importing, it kind of turns into a revolving escrow account. But nonetheless, the idea is that you're getting refunded the duties on the products that you paid duties on and are now leaving the country because they didn't stay in the US market. There was not, it's not necessary that the duties stay with those products. And I think that refund process takes about 6 months. It's kind of, like I said, a revolving account, if you will. But that's really applicable for those companies who are not in a free trade zone. So if you are in a free trade zone, then you are not paying duties when the products enter in to the free trade zone, the foreign trade zone. I'm using slang, the foreign trade zone. You're not paying duties. And so what's going out, you would not be eligible for a refund on those duties because you haven't outlaid that duty price, that duty tax. I hope that answers the question.
We had another follow-up. Do you know if tariffs stack specifically for China, Section 301, IEEPA, reciprocal?
Yes, indeed. These are, so there are stackable tariffs. I did not provide that specific information in this presentation. And what I will say is, yes, there is stacking of duties. And I did an exercise with a company on Section 232, actually, and went through the stacking and the application of which tariffs, because the reciprocals were not stacking if they were using the 232s. But the answer to that would be yes, there is stacking on tariffs, and the specific ones we would need to look at specifically and do an exercise with that to make sure that it's accurate.
Shelly, could you show the slide again about ACE? Where you highlighted what ACE means.
Yes, yes. Let me. Okay, well, since this takes a little while, you can go ahead, Lorna, to the next one.
Okay. The new tariffs are over all products by origin or are dependable from HTS code as well.
So all of the above. The tariffs are by HTS. I think this is the one. The tariffs are by the code, the product code, and by origin. And so it's not an either or, I guess. if that makes sense. They all move together. And so yes, I cannot think of I guess a better way for me to answer is I cannot think of a product code that does not have a tariff attached to it like we used to, I guess. All of this is kind of a new conversation because we've in our environment, we've had so much of our imports have had no duties. And so this hasn't even been a conversation. But at this moment, I cannot think of a code that would not be accompanied by tariff. And as I'm thinking about countries, I'm not coming up with any countries where there's no tariffs. So I guess my answer would be the new tariffs are all countries and all codes.
Okay. Another question is the duty drawback only for if your annual duties exceed 50,000?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, the duty drawback can be done by anyone, essentially. The reason that I have selected this arbitrary, it's kind of like the way I classified the companies as well. I chose that because there's an upfront cost to setting up the process. And so the normal way a duty drawback is handled is that you hire a customs broker who specializes in duty drawback to do it for you, and you pay them the service of setting this process up for you. And they're like really everything that I listed on here, there are specific requirements to everything. There is documentation to everything. And if you're going to do it, you want to do it right, because the whole point of doing any of these exercises is to get the benefit and not find yourself in more trouble. And so with duty drawback, there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of documentation, there's a lot of processing, and you will be paying a service provider to do that. And in order for it to be worthwhile, you want to have enough incentive. Otherwise, you're spending a ton of money to get back very little in duties. And so you're spending more to get it back than what you're getting back, because you don't have that many duties.
Can an international lawyer also set up a duty drawback, or only the custom broker?
Oh, you know what? I don't know. I've never worked with an internet. Of course, I mean, I'm assuming so, because lawyers can do practically everything. So I have no idea why a lawyer wouldn't be able to do something. That would be my best guess. But I don't know, Lorna, would you like to is there anyone who would like to come on and join the conversation in the last few minutes that we have?
Of course. If you would like to join the conversation here, I can bring you as a panelist. So send me a message via chat and I can do so.
Please come join me, anyone and all who want to participate. I don't know if there maybe are lawyers on the webinar, or potentially customs brokers, or I haven't looked through the the participants.
Okay, Emily, see if you're able to come and join us.
Oh, I see her showing up. Hello, Emily.
Hi, Shelly. I just wanted to come on and support you and thank you for this wonderful presentation today. And thank you, Lorna, for answering all these wonderful questions.
You.
Also,
Is there?
we have one more just to, Selma asked, what about the FTA countries? Are they still 0?
Selma's on. Selma, come join. You can join the conversation too.
Okay.
You know what? So this is perfect. My professional colleague, Selma Conas, may have found where it is helping me be more correct. So you know what, Selma, I haven't actually looked through all of the free trade agreements, but as now I'm looking at the USMCA, you're right. I heard that they did the qualifying eligible products are back at 0 now, and only the non-qualifying USMCA products still have a tariff. Oh, Selma, take yourself off mute. Come on.
Hey, how are you?
Great to hear your voice. Thank you.
Thanks for all of this information. It's great stuff. But I was very confused, confused about the FTA countries. I mean, and it's in addition to the USMCA, I mean, what about all the other, countries that we have free trade agreements with, that every time I check, any duty that I'm checking that I'm working on shows up as 0. So, and it's still showing up that way. So I don't know if these databases are being updated or not, accordingly. But so I don't know if you
I
have
haven't looked
any
into
insight.
it.
Yeah,
I think that's a
just the-
fantastic question. I haven't had it run across my desk, and so I honestly haven't looked into it. So
Okay.
your guess is as good as mine on that one. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I
But
need
thank
to.
you for bringing it up, because it didn't even cross my mind.
I know, because we usually think of the USMCA, but
Yes.
we have 20 FTAs, so it's just, and I don't know. So we'll see. We'll have to check into that.
Yes, and now I'm thinking of a company that is under one, and I haven't heard any. I actually didn't get any communication from them, and so I'm guessing that you're right, that the free trade agreement, at least that one that they're under, they're still not facing any tariffs. So, but
I
I
would
have
think,
not looked at it.
yeah, I would think that's a violation, but I don't know if that, like, I don't know. Who cares? It doesn't matter at this point, but
Not lawyers, so we don't know.
Shelly, I'd like to jump in. I know that time is going, but just one quick comment. I just want to thank you for highlighting the duty drawback again, because with the Florida MBDA Expert Center, we've had clients who wanted to do the foreign trade zone, and having the duty drawback as an option is a great thing to consider. The main thing is, what are the upfront costs, as you highlighted? Is it worth it, and so on? But I really appreciate your making that, highlighting that as an option, so that people know that there are options, just explore them and don't feel stuck. So thank you for that. And thanks again, Lorna.
Oh, thank you. The trade zone, the last company that I heard was setting it up, they're setting up their warehouse. I think they're working off of a number that's over 6 figures. So they're up and around 125 as an investment. This is just not feasible. So there are other options.
So thank you, Emily. And it's 1:01. I'm gonna launch a quick poll for you all to answer really quickly. We do value your feedback. As we have mentioned, we will be sharing the webinar, the presentation, as well as we're gonna add the link for the Chapter 98. We're gonna send the information for the ACE account and also the training video on how to set up that ACE account. Please allow at least one business day, because we do have to wait for the FIU Zoom department to send us the webinar recording. But once we receive it, we will be sending all that information to you. This also with everything. If you have any issues or questions, please email me. I've also added Shelly's email to the chat. And if you want to meet individually with Shelly to go over your business specifics, please register for consulting, okay? Thank you so much and have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.